Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again today. Um, so my name is Jonathan. We'll hop into this session with T-alpha-1 peptide. And just a little background, I have decade of experience in the emergency department and also have my own health and wellness clinics. So have one foot in the preventative side of medicine and reactive side in the emergency department, and then the other foot in the preventative with the health and wellness clinic. I should clarify first. So I have experience in both the preventative and health optimization and reactive with the emergency department. So that's kind of my background. And then we'll kind of hop into this amazing peptide. So showed this with Lyme disease. This is had a few patients that have come through with Lyme disease, long haul COVID, autoimmune diseases, even helps with POTS and stuff like that. But have a couple, particularly with Lyme disease and long haul COVID, where they just feel cruddy, run down. Lyme disease is tough. That's a tough one, even for infectious disease providers. Hats off to them because they deal with a lot of complicated disease states, and Lyme disease is one of them. And the patients go through a good bit there. Same with long haul COVID. You get COVID, irregardless from what I've seen, irregardless of how bad the strain is, whether they were crazy sick, needing breathing tube in the hospital when they had COVID, versus some of them who even just had a light cough and they just felt run down. Even after that, once they've recovered from COVID, they're still having symptoms several months to a year later and everything. So this peptide in particular has helped a good bit of people with diseases like this. And there are studies, and we'll go into it, there are studies about how it's actually helped people that have cancer and cancer patients. So really, really unique peptide. Typical disclaimer as usual, I'm not providing any health advice. This doesn't trump any healthcare provider that you're getting advice from. This is purely educational, based on experiences from individuals that I've seen and people that have utilized peptides in the past, or currently utilizing peptides. So by the end of the video, you should be able to know what T-alpha-1 is, how it can help you, and how to take it. So it's an incredible immune booster. This is the complex of it. It's one of the larger peptides that are out there. It is a 28 amino acid peptide found naturally in the thymus gland. So by definition, peptide is a string of amino acids. And then so this one's found in the thymus gland, and you may recognize from one of our other videos, another peptide that works great with healing and recovery, typically in a little bit different setting, is TB500. TB500 is the synthetic version, i.e. made in a lab, version of TB4, thymosin beta 4. So both of these come from the thymus gland. And as I mentioned in the other video as well, the thymus gland is really crucial to immunity and healing and those kind of benefits that we get. And that's in part a big portion of why kids heal really well. They can just kind of bounce back pretty quickly from stuff. Is when we're younger, our thymus gland is really well developed and very prominent with helping us as we're young and as we age and even get into young adulthood. So when I say age, I'm not saying like, hey, at 60 our thymus gland shrinks. No, this is like in our late teens and early 20s as we're becoming into adulthood, that thymus gland shrinks. So as we continue to age, these peptides become less available. So that's why these are so helpful, is that you're adding, you have T alpha 1 that's in your system, so you're just adding more to that. Um, and part of that's just as we age, the thymus gland shrinks and isn't able to have as much output there. So it plays a vital role in our immune system's defense against invaders like viruses, fungi, bacteria. As I mentioned, some of the studies will go over even cancer in some of them. It's long been recognized for modifying and enhancing and restoring the immune function. This is per PubMed Central. And just to kind of reiterate, when I go through peptides, a lot of the references are through the NIH website, PubMed, clinical articles on studies from peptides. So how does it work? It's fairly complicated. Immunology is an entire industry and specialty on its own. So I tried to simplify this as much as we could. And a good way is kind of through a metaphor. So this is kind of a deeper knowledge of kind of how it works, of how T alpha 1 works, but also I'm not getting into nitty gritty of immunology, because this is immunology in itself is a multi-year. I mean, you can go really deep into the weeds with this. So, but I do want you to have an understanding of the amazing benefits that it has. So, Army has a body. Our body has an army, the immune system, to defend from viruses, bacteria, fungi, just all kinds of different infections. It has different types of cells that fight. So there's like fighter cells, T cells, natural killer cells, and those are the cells that typically go and are active in destroying these different invaders, and they destroy them by different mechanisms and all that stuff. But the goal of understanding is there are cells in our body that actively go around and destroy invaders. There are other cells like myeloid cells, and in a subsection of myeloid cells is dendritic cells. They act like scouts. They find the invaders, essentially kind of tag them. They call for backup. They call for these T cells and natural killer cells to go and help fight off what's going on there. So it's a special, T alpha 1 is a special messenger molecule that helps the immune system fight invaders. It communicates with myeloid and dendritic cells, telling them to send a stronger signal for backup. And this signal brings more immune fighters like T cells and natural killer cells to the battlefield. So another thing too, I'm going to just hop out of the screen for a second, is one of the studies I wanted to kind of highlight here that's really neat is this from Science Direct, but this is from, click from the NIH website. So this is a study that was published back in 2013 Journal of Autoimmunity. So kind of going over myeloid cells, and it's comprised of these dendritic cells and tissue macrophages. But some of the stuff, something I really want to highlight too that's really important, the development of myeloid cells in the bone marrow, because that's where a lot of these come from, is stem cells from the bone marrow. They're diminished without the intestinal microbiome. So I do want to draw attention to the fact and importance of how important it is to have your microbiome optimized, because that's a huge topic these days as well. So, and this is a clinical study showing, and you can dig into that article, but that shows it references that article, so you can go into the weeds about the specifics. But if your gut microbiome isn't optimized, then you're decreasing the amount of these scouts to go hunt down invaders that make you sick. So this is why there's so much linkage. There's all these links of illnesses and chronic illnesses stemming from an unhealthy gut microbiome. And this is a excellent example. So it's a little bit of a detour. So my apologies for that detour, but couldn't help myself to bring up the importance of gut microbiome, because peptides work really well once your gut microbiome is optimized, and when hormones are optimized really well. It's just kind of when they're working at max efficiency. They still work. I mean, you're adding more T alpha 1 to your system. That's better than not having any on there. But there are ways to improve the efficacy, or how well the peptide works. And this is all based on studies that I just showed you. T alpha 1, thymosin alpha 1, strengthens your immune response and prevents infections by calling for more immune system fighters. It strengthens your body's overall defense system. The term is called adaptive immune response, which helps fight off infections, some diseases, and even cancer. What can you take it for? Cold or flu, you can take it on the onset of symptoms. You can take it with flu vaccine for the elderly, increases the response to the vaccine. With cancer, it increases the anti-tumor effect while reducing the toxicity of cancer treatments. Big one with this one is, again, this is based off clinical studies, educational purposes. It's really important that you coordinate with, if you're undergoing any cancer treatment, coordinating with your oncologist, because their input is tremendous and definitely trumps, any stuff or any information, on here. T alpha 1 also helps with hepatitis B and C, HIV, sepsis, chronic inflammation, which leads to chronic fatigue, and it helps with wound healing. Here's a whole other list, oxidative damage, pancreatic lesions, pancreatitis, pulmonary disease. So when you kind of think of what we went through with the scouts and soldiers concept, a lot of these, make sense. So this is another, PubMed article that kind of goes into a lot of this adjunctive stuff that T alpha 1 helps with. Again, PubMed being a clinically validated, resource. It's been tested across a wide variety of clinical trials since 1985 in over 3,000 patients, ranging from 12 months old to 101-year-old. And then, a well-known biohacker, Jay Campbell, summarized a series of clinical studies, I think, pretty well. So T alpha 1 consistently showed that T alpha 1 administration increased natural killer cells activity in mice that were immunosuppressed by cancer, and or cyclophosphamide, but not in normal mice. T alpha 1 is FDA approved. That's why there's so many studies about it. It actually does have FDA approval. Zadaxin. It's approved for malignant melanoma, which is a really bad skin cancer. If you have any skin that changes colors, especially black, that's definitely a time to go check out with a dermatologist, because it's really nasty. And it's not one that kind of grows wide and out. It can even be just like a speck, and it grows deep and underneath your skin. So it's not like this big bulging, mass or tumor that's going to be created. It's going to look like a nasty looking freckle, but that's actually going deeper in the skin. The deeper it gets, the more dangerous it is. So it's that's a big indicator, and the fact that this is FDA approved for that is, in essence, a pretty good testament of how effective T alpha 1 is. Also for hepatitis B and hepatocellular carcinoma. And hepatocellular carcinoma is like a cells from the liver. Hep is liver related, and then carcinoma is cancer. So cancer comes from the liver. So it's got FDA approval for cancers and hepatitis. So those are pretty big deals. And this is, FDA approvals after clinical studies. And they found a bunch more benefits during those clinical studies, but that's what they were approved for the focus of their study. So that's a pretty big deal. Um, so, what is T alpha 1? Peptide found naturally in the thymus gland. Um, it helps with healing and immune support. How to take it. There's no established dosage guidelines in the broad research. Rule of thumb is to begin at the lowest dose feasible, but based on studies and FDA clearance, there are some dosages that tend to be the doses that are targeted based on the studies, and there was a wide variety with the studies that were there. So common dosage, 1.5 milligrams injected subcutaneously twice a week for 6 to 12 months. Keeping in mind, similar to other peptides we talked about, try to keep those dates, days within the week within a similar time frame. So like Monday and Thursday is good because there's an even amount of time between them. So that usually is a really good help for that. Can also do 1.5 milligrams per day for 5 to 7 days. Also, just like a lot of other peptides, need to cycle off as well. So if you're using it for 6 to 12 months, twice a week, then we need to be off for at least the equal amount of time. So if you use it for 6 months, that's it for the year. Take off the next 6 months. Potential side effects, they are rare. They can happen. Again, hugely tested, and these tended to happen with higher doses, higher than what was mentioned above. But something that needs to be taken note of. So injection site reactions, muscle atrophy, kind of the tone of the muscle, losing your muscle tone, joint aches and pains, hand swelling, rash, fever, nausea, vomiting. Again, this is kind of an immunological response for higher doses that can take place. Not to say that it can't take place with this dose, but it's pretty rare from the studies for it to be, these more guided doses from the studies. Injecting subcutaneously is preferred route and makes it very bioavailable. As mentioned in the past as well, Limitless Biotech is great, strong company, super transparent. I love that they provide their purity reports on the website. They're performed by a third-party lab, and I've dug into the third-party lab that they have, and spoke with them on the phone, confirming there's no affiliation at all. Limitless Biotech pays full price and top dollar for big study to provide these purity reports. So transparency is key. Owner is strong, and company is very open with everything that's going on there. So Peptide 15 for 15% off for their people going through there. So kind of recapping what we talked about with these steps on T alpha 1. Where is it found? Or I'm sorry, what is T alpha 1? Thymosin alpha 1. It's a peptide found naturally in the thymus gland. How can it help you? It helps with healing and immunity, kind of like we talked about, scouts and soldiers going after invaders in your immune system, and how to take it. Injected subcutaneously underneath the skin. 1.5 milligrams twice a week for 6 to 12 months, or daily for a week, and be sure to cycle on and off for an equal amount. If you're doing the once per day for 5 to 7 days, you need to cycle off more than a week. So that's usually something where if you're doing it once a day for a week, you need to at least take off I'd say anywhere from really 6 to 8 weeks, and see how you're doing there. Just because you got it all, back to back throughout that week. Pop quiz: what is a benefit you might expect from T alpha 1, which again is thymosin alpha 1? A, preventing the flu. B, reducing the toxicity of chemotherapy. And C, enhancing the ability to fight off immune diseases. Or D, all of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. What is T alpha 1? It is a chemical derived from a rare fungus. Or B, it's a vitamin that bolsters the immunity. C, it's a peptide found naturally in the thymus. Or D is an amino acid that helps heal injuries. The answer is C. It's a peptide found naturally in the thymus gland. Peptide that helps with healing with injuries this is an unrelated pop quiz. TB500, thymosin beta 4. Those are both same thing, equal compounds. One's made in the lab and one's natural in the thymus gland. So hopping back to T alpha 1, sorry for that side pop quiz. How much should you take? A, as much as you like. B, 1.5 milligrams injected twice a week. C, 10 micrograms injected daily. Or D, 2 sprays in the nostril daily. The answer is B. Reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much for listening and joining me today. Appreciate it, guys.